Perfect.
Okay, guys, I am here with Becky Mollenkamp of BeckyMollenkamp.com. How are you, Becky?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
I am so excited for you to be here. So we were chatting beforehand, and you would kind of establish yourself as a mentor, right? How do you kind of niche yourself?
Well, I don't niche a lot, which maybe is a mistake, but I work with women who do any sort of creative service, basically. So that's a fairly broad niche, but I just really love working with women business owners who are struggling to sort of break through and hit another level. So whether that's just starting out and kind of just struggling to really get traction and get going, or have been in business for a few years and feeling like you're just sort of stuck and can't seem to make that next leap. I really love helping people work through some of the mindset, and then also just really giving a lot of practical advice on how to make some changes to make things happen.
Perfect. Now, was this something that you always did, or is it something that you've kind of switched your career path along the way?
I'm evolving as I get older. So I've been a writer, a freelance writer for a long time. Well, I've been a writer my entire career, so 20 something years. And I've been self-employed for 13 years. And in the last, about 6 years ago, I went from writing primarily for magazines, consumer magazines, to doing a lot more corporate writing because, consumer magazines sadly are kind of dying. And so I needed to find a new niche to stay alive. And then in the last couple of years, I had a couple of events happen. One, I had one of my professors from journalism school passed away, and the last conversation he and I had was about him thinking I should really consider teaching. And it's something I've always been interested in. And then I had a kid a year ago, and those two things really together made me feel like I want to give in a different way. I've been in business so long, and I feel like I have learned a lot, and I have a lot of experience that I can share, and I want to find new ways to do that. And so some of that has been through one-on-one mentoring, and then also through offering some courses and things that, pull from that knowledge so that I can share with people.
Perfect. Yes. I think definitely as far as the teaching aspect and having kids, it changes your mindset and the way that you think about things and the way that you want to be able to give back. So now one of the questions that I always ask is, what do you find being one of the toughest things about being an entrepreneur?
Well, it changes because now that I have a child, it's definitely just making enough time to do everything I want to get done. Because I think as an entrepreneur, very often the reason we do this is because we have lots of ideas and all these things we want to do and create. And I certainly do. And now I literally don't have the time. Sometimes when we say we don't have time, it's because we're not organizing our schedule well. But I actually only have childcare for about 15 hours a week. And I'm trying to do more than what I used to do when I had unlimited hours, and now at only 15 hours. So definitely has changed a lot. So I think that's probably right now, that's the biggest problem. In the past, I think, it would have been something more practical, like finding new clients or having a stable income, which definitely that is one of the big ones. But for me right now, it's really about just learning how to juggle baby and business.
And it does come in waves. I think as they grow, you get to that point where it's not a baby anymore, but then you're dealing with a toddler and trying to deal with the tantrums and everything else that come along with it. So it's definitely a season of change. Like we've gotten to the point with us where my girls have outside activities. So times where we used to be home to cook dinner is now running from this activity to gymnastics, to dance, whatever it might be. It's definitely seasons of change for sure.
Yeah. And I'm already going through, he's 15, almost 16 months. So we're just getting into the terrible twos, which I have learned actually start a lot earlier than two. And so he's learned what a temper tantrum is. So that's been fun.
Always, right?
Yeah.
So now you obviously have a ton of experience as far as in business and being an entrepreneur. So what would you say is the biggest mistakes that you see business owners kind of making? And I think I also want you to define what you classify as a business owner, because I think we kind of have these in-betweens of not knowing what we can classify ourselves as.
Yeah, and this is to me is such a fascinating conversation and something that I can get a little passionate and sometimes a little upset about. I saw somebody online recently and I kind of got into it a little bit and then excused myself from the conversation because I'm like, I don't need to do this. But she was having this argument about what makes somebody a business owner versus a hobbyist. And she set like a hard number. She said, if you aren't making, I can't remember, it was $500 or $1,000 a month from your business, then you're just a hobbyist. And that really gets me upset, because the true definition of a professional is someone who gets paid for something. That's it. Whether you get paid 10 cents or you get paid $10,000, you are a professional once someone is willing to pay you for that service. And so if you are making any money, I think you own a business. That's it, plain and simple. I don't care how much you're making. If you have money coming in from something that you are doing, it is a business. And so I think you're right. A lot of people get caught up in this stuff, whether it's because they hear someone else like that spouting these kind of things off, or because of what their parents or family are telling them, or messages they got from as a child, whatever it is. Like, we let these things get to us, and we think it affects our self-worth, because then we're like, well, I don't deserve to call myself a business owner, or we start to, and this is a big thing, I'm just a whatever, I'm just a blogger, or I'm just a hobbyist, but no, if you're getting money, if somebody is paying you, someone says, I like this, whatever it is you do, enough to give you some of my hard-earned income for it, then darn it, own it. You have a business, and start thinking of yourself that way.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. It absolutely is mindset. It's just the way that you think of yourself. And my definition would be the exact same. If you're getting paid for something, then you're a business owner. How you go about setting up the rest of everything else will obviously make it simpler or not so simple. So let's talk a little bit about what you feel are the must things to have in place as far as steps to make sure that you're running your business profitably.
Well, and the first thing is something you just hit on, which is that whole mindset thing. And it's about how we talk about our business. Because it's one thing, if you don't own that, if you don't own that you are a business owner, then guess what? Other people aren't either. So it's not just a matter of like saying that you're a business owner and it's some label and it doesn't really matter, but it is truly about shifting how you think about your business, about yourself. And when you do those things, that changes what you project. And so if you're the kind of person who's hearing from people, oh, that's a fun hobby, or, oh, you can take me to the airport in the middle of the day because you don't really work. Or, oh, it must be nice to have a partner who's, that supports you so that you can do that thing. Oh, you're so lucky you're a stay-at-home mom. And if those things, every time you hear them, ding, and, oh, that's not right, that's not me. Part of it is other people's ignorance, but also some of the reason they may have that ignorance is because of how you're projecting your business and yourself. So you may be giving messages that you don't even realize you're giving that are having people start to respond to you in that way. So when we don't own that we are a business owner, we don't own that we are a CEO. If you're making money, you got a business. And if you are the head of that business, you are the CEO. So if you're not owning that and not projecting that, then you're going to be hearing those things back, and it gets frustrating and it beats you down. But it's easy to just blame those people. But really, you have to look at yourself, because I was certainly in that boat. I would have people say those kinds of things to me, and I would get so mad, and I would stew about it, and I would tell my husband, how dare they? And then I realized I'm not doing a very good job of telling people what I did. I would say I'm just a freelancer. Oh, I work in my pajamas. I'm giving people these messages. And so of course they're treating me that way. So number one, more than anything, really evaluate how you're thinking about your business and how you're talking about your business. Because first of all, if you're not thinking of as a business, no one else is gonna. And that includes people who might pay you, because you're not projecting a professional image, whether you realize it or not. You may think you are, but it's very likely that that subtle stuff that's going on in your head is coming out in ways you don't even realize. So more than anything, number one, how do you think about your business and how do you talk about it? And making some adjustments there is going to really change everything for you. It seems so subtle, but I promise it's really huge.
I think for me, because I could definitely understand that, and it was my first year really running into it last year because I was home full time. The girls were both in school, and I got asked to be the room mom because I was home and had nothing better to do. And I was just was sure, I'll do it. And then once I started to realize and see how much time it was taking, and then being able to say, I have these office hours, I need to be doing this. It was when I was actually projecting, like you're saying, talking about my schedule and what it looked like, where I found I got asked to do things less and less compared to in the beginning when I just said, oh yeah, no, it's my first time not having any kids at home and we're going to go from there.
Yeah, if somebody asks you what you do and you feel like if your normal answer is I'm a blogger, or worse, just a blogger, or whatever the thing is you do, and they say, oh, what is that? It might be easy for you to just say something along the lines of, well, I write about this, and leave it there. But that doesn't tell somebody what you do, because that's not what you do. If you run a business, you're doing the thing you do, but you're also doing all the other things that go into business. You're finding clients or affiliates or partnerships. You're handling all of your own marketing. You're handling all of your own sales. You're handling all of your bookkeeping, all of the things. You're doing everything. And so when someone asks what you do, you don't have to list it all out, but there is a way to kind of say, well, I run my own business. Or I run my own business, and that means I do everything, so that people understand that.
Yes. No, absolutely. And I think too, like having that down pat, knowing, because that's something that I teach a lot of my students, is to have this elevator pitch. And it doesn't have to just be to your clients, but to have an elevator pitch for who you're talking to in your everyday when you go to preschool to pick them up. And people ask you, what do? You don't want to stumble over yourself. You want to be able to say, just like you said, own my own business, and this is what it kind of gears towards. So
yeah, I think makes a big difference. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing I would say that goes right after that is when so you've talked the talk now, you're learning how to talk the talk. Now you need to walk that talk. So it's treat your business like a business, not only in how you talk about it, but how you run it. So if you're making money, you have a business. And if you have a business, then the best way to project that is to do the real foundational kind of steps. Get an EIN. So if you're working with anyone, you're not giving your social security number, because that's a real clear message to those people that you are a solopreneur, you are working at home, you are self-employed, you are just yourself. And sometimes it also sends a message that you just really haven't taken the steps to create a real business. It's subtle things that people will interpret, and along with that, having an LLC, so that when you send off an invoice, when you sign a contract, they know that you are a business, that you are protected. That's important to people that you work with, not just with you as well. So I think getting that EIN takes a matter of seconds, literally, on the IRS website, and it's free. So anyone who's still using their social security number for billing, stop immediately. Go right now to the IRS website and get an EIN. It literally takes seconds. You don't have to do anything else to do it. And then think about getting an LLC. That requires some amount of money. It's wise to work with a lawyer. It's possible not to, depending on what state you're in, or where you're at. I didn't. I did it myself. I took some research and all of that. So I was able to get my LLC for about $50. And then you also really want to consider getting a business bank account. All of these things are just helping to establish you as a business so that you look professional, and also to protect you should you ever get sued for anything. If you're somebody who is if you're a blogger who's talking about nutrition, that's somewhere where you could get sued. If you're a blogger who's talking about physical fitness and someone gets hurt, you could get sued. So you may think, well, I just write about whatever. Who's going to sue me because I write blog posts? You can get sued, And so if you don't want them to take you for all that you are worth and all that your spouse is worth and, your house, then having those legal things in place that show that you have a business so they can sue the business and not you are important. And so sometimes I think when we just are our own boss, and listen, I went 10 years without doing these steps. So I'm here to say, practice what I preach or do what I say, not what I do, because it took me a long time. But I will say, when I made the shift from talking the talk and then walking the talk, my business grew. And it was, I think it's just because I was projecting a different image, and I would have never believed it if somebody had told me that, but it is so true.
So that was exactly what I was thinking in my head as you're talking about this, it was a huge shift for me when I actually went through the whole process, got the EIN. We actually filed as an S Corp, and that was based on our accountant. So you can always talk to your accountant and see what would be the best filing for you as a business. And then getting that business bank account, like really understanding what's coming in and what's going out, where it's not, okay, well, this is some of the house money. And it was just, it relieves so much stress within a family, at least within my relationship with my husband, him being able to see what was coming in and going out in a separate account from our personal. It makes such a difference. And it did feel like karma. Once we did it, it was like it just kind of took off and became its own entity. It was no longer just me.
Yeah, and you're right. Educating your partner is really important, but and truly educating yourself, because I don't think when all your money's in one big pot, you think you know what you're making, you think you know what you're spending with your business, but it's really easy to overlook things. It's really easy to kind of let stuff go. And when you have it all separated and you see it there in black and white, when you can pull out, I use QuickBooks and I can quickly do a report and see what I'm spending, what I'm making, it makes a big difference in how I think about my business and how I think about spending and how I think about income, just all of it. It makes a huge difference.
Yes. No, absolutely. We had previous episode where Ayana Vaughn, who's my bookkeeper, came on and talked about the financial aspect and like what records we should keep, and just to make taxes so much easier when it does come instead of freaking out at the time when they hit. So, absolutely.
Which definitely can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, another thing that I think is really important for people to kind of put in place if they haven't already is branding. And I think this is an area where a lot of bloggers do a really great job because a lot of times they start here, which I actually think is maybe not always the best approach. I think having a business plan in place and having some of those foundational things in place is really a great idea if you can do it first, because it helps guide everything. It gives you a roadmap so that you're not kind of just doing things with no real reason behind them. That's usually not a real recipe for doing things well, and then you end up redoing things. But if you're already in business, if you're already making money, that's fine. Think about your branding. Think about the image that you're projecting. We've talked about the things you're saying. We're talking about sort of the foundational things being in place, but it's also really important what people see when they look at you, when they see your business. If you don't have professional headshots, if you're still using a selfie, that says something, that tells people something. And it doesn't mean that you can't have fun. It doesn't mean that you can't have a professional image that still fits with whatever your personality is. So if you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that because my whole thing is that I'm fun and it's quirky, and you can still do that, but look professional and look like you know what you're doing and not look like a, DIY homemade site. Because when people come to see that, whether it's somebody who might be hiring you for some sort of business or somebody who's thinking about whether they want to use you for an affiliate program or whether they want to use you as, for a sponsored post or whatever it is, they go and look at your site. If it doesn't look professional, even if you have thousands of followers, they might not believe you. They may not think that's what they're seeing because they're used to seeing something more polished. So it costs some money to get professional branding photos done. It costs some money to get a logo and get some graphics. But if you've made a little money and you're at a place where you can spend that makes sense, which is another reason why I think branding doesn't always need to come first. We rush off and spend a bunch of money on a fancy logo, but we're not making any money. So if you can sort of make some money and then spend it, that makes more sense. This is an area where I think it does make sense to spend some money. Get the things that are going to give people that professional image.
I think too, as you continue to grow and there's more income coming in, there's levels of branding as well. You don't always want to have the same headshot from 3 years ago if you've been in the same business. I can definitely go for that. I went to a conference to speak, walked up to people, and they had no idea who I was because I had just cut my hair very much shorter than it ever had been in the past. But my headshots weren't updated. So the first thing I did when I got back is we went through that whole rebranding process of the headshots and the website and making sure everything was consistent. So absolutely, I think that's really important.
I heard someone say once, if your headshot is old enough to buy you a drink, it's time for a new one. And I think that's true. But honestly, these days, I think if it's only even a couple of years old, it's time for to get something new. Like this is something you want to get to a place where you can work it into your budget year over year, at least every other year, where you're investing money into your branding and updating it, keep it current, because things change so quickly, especially now in the world we live in where, with social media and everything else. Things change so fast and everyone knows what the trends are. And I'm not saying you have to look trendy, but if you look dated, if you've got, big bangs still in your photo from, the 80s that I had, that's going to tell people something. Like it changes quickly. And so like my glasses will get outdated quickly, and I know I'm going to get a new pair every other year because I don't want to go out in the world looking dated, but then I don't update my photo. That doesn't make sense. You want to project that sort of current professional look. So try to get to that place where you're able to say, okay, every year I need to have X number of dollars that I'm budgeting in so that I can keep my look fresh and professional.
Yes. No, absolutely. I could not agree more because it is something I can simply get done. It doesn't have to be terribly expensive and it will make all the difference. So,
and something else to think about is bartering, which is something that we don't always think about doing, but can really be great for your business. So if you're an amazing writer, and somebody, a photographer who needs help with their website or needs some blog posts written, and that's what you do, don't be afraid to ask about trades. People will do that when it fits. If both sides are getting something they need, then people are willing to do it. Now, it doesn't work when you're offering something that's of very little value to someone else. Obviously, if their photography is worth, $2,000 and you're offering them a $200 value blog post, no. But if you can find something where both people make sense, don't be afraid to do that. That's a great way, particularly in the beginning, but it can even work ongoing to make sure that you're able to spend money, spend the things that would normally cost money.
Yes. All right. So we've talked about the talk, doing the walk, and now the image that goes behind it. What would be your next step?
Well, and we're talking about spending, which is actually what I talk about next for people, is to be smart about spending. Like I said, a lot of people right off the bat start spending a lot of money, and sometimes they'll hear people talking about their 6-figure launch and they spent $10,000 on Facebook ads and then made, $100,000. But those people very often have a lot more experience in that area and know what they're doing. And so I think we need to be mindful, because we take a lot of information in and we hear people doing things and we think, well, I have to get this and I have to get that, and I have to have ConvertKit, or I have to have Aweber, and then I have to have, a Facebook ads account that's spending $100 a day, and you don't have to do all of that stuff, particularly in the beginning, but never. Find what works for you and be smart about how you spend. Don't do all the things right off the bat and overspend. The smartest way to do anything with money, whether it's your personal finances or your business, is to spend money you have and not money you don't. I actually talked to somebody, one of my mentoring clients, and this blew me away, got approached by somebody to do mentoring who was coaching. She was a very expensive coach. It was something like 8. I think at that time it was 8, but she was telling her she's getting ready to raise her rates to like $10,000 for her coaching program.
Okay.
It may very well be worth the value. Like, who knows? She may be great, but my mentee was saying, I don't have that kind of money. I'm barely, I just started my business. I'm not making much money yet. I don't have that. And this person advised her to get a business credit card to pay for her fees. And then also suggested a line of credit. And that's predatory and dangerous. And I can't believe there are people out there doing that. And if people are suggesting it, it means there are people out there doing it. Right. Don't take that kind of advice. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Yeah. Pretty much plain and simple, work, hustle, make a little bit of money at a time, and then start to spend that money where it makes sense. And that's it.
Yes. And if there's something like that you want to be able to do coaching for a $10,000 program, budget for it each month, save up to it instead of having to shell out that much money, or know that there's a monthly fee. Well, you have to have that monthly fee to be able to pay for it. No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's some of the traps that we fall into as entrepreneurs. We're very shiny object syndrome, where we want all the latest and the greatest, and we are always on an information overload. So I think that that's definitely an issue. And I love that advice of just taking a step back and making sure that you have that money coming in before you try to spend it.
And don't forget about taxes. Right. Because you may think I made this much money, so I can spend this much money. But don't forget that you're also having to pay taxes, and heavy taxes, because you're not paying self-employment taxes, which when you first start out is something that can be super shocking to the system. When you're like, I have to pay how much? I barely made any money. So just really take it slow. I mean, and honestly, some of the first money you should probably spend is on an accountant and or bookkeeper to help you better understand how to spend your money. That's going to be wise money spent. When you can afford it, do it, because that person is going to be, if they know what they're doing and they're not a jerk, they're going to be telling you, you can't afford to do this. Don't do that. Right. And they're going to help you learn how to budget and how to do things really wisely, rather than running out and saying, just because American Express just sent you something saying, hey, you've got a business now, you filed your LLC or your EIN. When you do that, be warned, you will start to get business mail, and they're going to promise you all kinds of credit. No, resist the urge. Just because you're like, oh, but I really want to go to that retreat, or I really want to buy that course, and I didn't have the money, but they tell me they'll help me make my money back tenfold. That's great. And I hope that all of what you invest in does deliver that kind of ROI, but don't do it until you can afford it. Yeah. Even if it's a sacrifice, that's fine, but you need to afford it. So yeah, budget for it. Be smart about it.
Yes. No, I could not agree more. And I've definitely been on both sides of it where I've done things where I was like, oh, I shouldn't have spent that. And then also known ahead of time, there's a conference I want to go to. I know that it's this much, and we're going to make sure that that is budgeted for and ready to go so that we don't feel like we're pecking away trying to find the money for it. So
yeah, very smart.
Love it. All right. So last step, what would you say your last step is for creating yourself more like a business?
So I always have these 5 sort of pillars, I think, and the last of those is networking. And I think it's really easy. I mean, heck, I went into business. I told people, whenever people ask me why I went into business, the truth was I went into business because I wanted to work in my pajamas. And that's no lie. I saw everyone else doing it. I'm like, well, why can't I work at home in my pajamas or in my yoga pants? And I put on a nice shirt for this today, but I have on yoga pants today. Listen, I love yoga pants, and I don't want to have to work somewhere where I have to wear a dang suit. Like, that's just not me. But it's easy when you do that to get sort of stuck in this, like, well, I work alone, and it can also then become lonely and isolating, and you can cut yourself off from a lot of opportunities. So I think it's really easy to kind of get lost in being self-employed and being alone and forget that we can still have relationships, business relationships, and we need them. One, for our sanity, because working alone can drive you nuts, and being in your pajamas is fun for a while, but eventually you think, well, like, I'm talking to the dogs and expecting them to talk back now. Like, I haven't had a discussion with anyone about anything professional in years. Like, so we need it for our sanity, but we also need it to really grow our business. And so there are 2 ways of doing that. And one is traditional kind of networking, whether it's going out, and if you're more of an extrovert, that tends to work better for you. So getting your butt up and finding in your local community networking events and going to those, or virtual networking, which can happen through social media. One site that I particularly love and I have a course about is LinkedIn. And I think if you're trying to grow your business beyond sort of small projects and want to work with bigger corporate clients in any way, whether that's as a writer, a photographer, or even in partnerships through some sort of collaboration, that's where they live. And so having a stronger presence there is great. And there are groups on LinkedIn where you can actually have community, just like you would in a Facebook group. So finding that kind of network for yourself of other professionals that you can bounce ideas off of or find work through, partner up with, that's really important. And the other big piece for me has been a mastermind group. I love masterminds. I can't talk enough about how great I think they are. I think sometimes that word has become confusing for people, mastermind, because so many coaches offer group programs and call them masterminds, which they are, but it's not the only way that a mastermind can exist. So mastermind means group think. That's really all it means. Whenever you get a group of people together and you work together to solve problems, that's your masterminding, whether you know it or not. So that can exist as part of a group coaching program, and you can pay for that, and it's can be incredibly valuable. But as I'm talking about money, you don't have to spend money to have a mastermind. And I think that's really important for people to know. I think those programs are fantastic. And when you can afford them, they can really propel your business because you're going to have somebody at the helm of that mastermind who really knows their stuff and is going to help direct things. But when you can't afford that, you can start your own, which is what I did. A couple of years ago, I had heard so much about mastermind groups. Like really the one thing that every person I listened to, every podcast I was hearing from every big thought leader, the only thing they had in common was they were all in mastermind groups. And I was like, what is this magic sauce I have to figure it out? Well, when I looked, they were all super expensive. I'm like, I can't do this. But I read more and was like, I can start my own. And I'm the kind of person who does that. So reach out. It can be virtual. It can be local. Reach out to people individually that you think would be amazing for it, or put out a big call in a Facebook group or wherever you spend your time and say that you're looking for one. And what that is going to give you accountability, which is huge in trying to grow your business. A mastermind group does so many amazing things. It helps you get new ideas that you wouldn't have, gives you a lot of input from other people that could be potential customers. So you're getting kind of some real data about what you're doing. It helps you focus. It helps you dream big. But to me, the biggest thing is that accountability, because mine meets every single week. Every single week, I know that there is a group of people that are going to say to me, did you do what you said you would do? And I don't want to be the jerk that didn't. And so I get stuff done because I know people are going to be asking me. And when we work alone, it's really easy to get lost in all the ideas and to try to do everything and not get things done because we're trying to accomplish too much, and we just don't have anyone asking us if we're doing anything. It's one of the things about having a boss that's kind of nice. You get your stuff done for your boss because you have to, but when you're your own boss, it's a little easy to let those things slide. So a mastermind group can make a huge difference in getting things done and moving yourself forward.
Yes. I think having those different perspectives, so that even if I know we have the tendency to kind of stay within our niche, but if you can go outside of your niche and have different perspectives to see how a food blogger does it compared to a parenting blogger, I think that can be so impactful. And I think you're seeing what they're thinking about in their business, which you may not even have gone there yet. It might be your next step and you didn't realize that it was. So I agree. I love masterminds. I actually facilitate one, just facilitated 2 for the summer, and then we'll be starting back up in the fall. They are definitely pairing up people and making it so that they have this safe environment to be able to share. So helpful.
And when you can afford to go through a professional one, it definitely, when you're there, then do it. Until that point, DIY it like everything else. That's how the best, smartest way to grow a business is to bootstrap until you can afford something. So once you can afford to invest in a mastermind, it's really great because, like I said, then you have somebody who's really making sure that you're thinking of all the things that you guys might not on your own. Like having that facilitator can make a huge difference. And then making sure when you do invest in a mastermind that you invest wisely. Choose one, because there are a million. Yeah. So choose one.
Varying levels to them.
Absolutely. So make sure you know the facilitator, you like the facilitator, what the facilitator teaches makes sense for your business, and then ask that person questions, because if they're not willing to answer questions about that mastermind, you don't want to join. So ask them what you want to know. Ask them the kinds of people that are going to be in it, what kind of accountability protocols there are, what kind of homework, if there's going to be any, if it's part of a group coaching program, sometimes that is, sometimes it's not, what kind, what systems are you using? So what kind of technology are you using? Ask all the questions before you sign up so that you get your money's worth, because the worst thing is spending money on something like that and then feeling like it wasn't worth the investment.
Oh, absolutely. So now one of the questions that I always ask people that come onto the podcast, are there projections for the rest of 2017 in our industry? What do you see as up and coming and wanting to be like in the forefront?
I don't know. I'm not very good at trends. But what I have been noticing in my little part of the world, and so who knows if this is global or not, but I've noticed a lot of people wanting to breathe, to take a step back, that everyone is feeling this information overwhelm and, they just have been trying to do too much. Everyone's been wanting to do everything. There's so many different social media channels and things that you can do within those, and everyone's been trying to do it all. And I've just noticed everyone kind of collapsing under the weight of that and thinking, I just can't do this. And so I got to take a step back. So I've noticed a lot of people starting to pare back. Do I really need to do this particular social media channel? Do I need to be in all of these Facebook groups? Whatever it is that's overwhelming people, I just noticed people starting to really call out all the stuff, the noise, getting rid of the noise, and really focusing on the places that make the most sense. And I think that's a really good thing. I think it's a scary thing for people because we feel like, I couldn't possibly get rid of Instagram entirely, or leave half of the Facebook groups I'm in, or whatever that thing is that you do, or only blog twice a week instead of every day, whatever. But I think we need to all sort of sometimes take that moment to assess what we're doing and really figure out what's working and what we're doing just because we think we should be. I really hate shoulds. I'm guilty of them all the time. My mastermind will catch me on that, which is another reason I love them, because they will be really good at calling me out on my stuff. Because I preach all the time, don't do shoulds. There's no shoulds. Stop shoulding all over yourself, people say. Don't should. But then there are times where somebody will ask me, well, so why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, I think I should. No. So if you're doing something only because you should be, then it's probably not worthwhile. If you're doing something because you love it, even if it doesn't generate a lot of results, but you love it, great. Or if you're doing something maybe you don't love, but it's generating a lot of results, okay, great. But if you're doing something you don't really love and it's generating no results and you just think you should be, no. So my thought is I think we're going to continue to see more of that. More people sort of pulling back, scaling back, really asking themselves if this is worth it. And I think it's going to be good. I think it'll be a scary change for a lot of people, but I think ultimately it'll be really good.
Yes, I love that. And I can see myself honestly doing it as well. Like there have definitely been social media platforms where I've stepped back and said, yeah, let's just focus on these for now, grow this, see the results, and then be able to test another social media outlet to see if it's just as important and driving the traffic that it needs to be. So.
Yeah, I think making that shift actually is really good for you because we try to do everything. When you try to do everything, you do nothing very well. If you do one thing and do it really well, I mean, when you look at a lot of the people that are making a lot of money selling us courses on how to do things, it's because they do one thing really well. They know Instagram and they make a lot of money selling how to telling you how to do Instagram, but that's because that's the thing they do. They're not worried about Pinterest and whatever else. And then somebody else knows Pinterest, but if you look at their Instagram, it's not very great. But they're still doing really well because they focus and they know one thing really well. And I think it makes sense. It's just scary when you're like hearing the messages, you have to do everything.
Right. And feeling like you're being weighted and viewed based on all of the statistics. Absolutely. So now where are the best places to find you? Obviously, BeckyMollenkamp.com. Where else would be the best place? Are you on Facebook?
So talking about scaling back, I have a Facebook group, and so I have now gotten my life down to about 10 Facebook groups, which is huge for me. One is my own, which is called Own It, Crush It. Feel free to come join. It's for women business owners, which means anyone who's making some money at what they do. And it's a really super supportive, positive environment because that's really what I am about and why I started the group, because I had seen a lot of negativity in other groups. So Own It, Crush It on Facebook is probably the best place. My website, and then on my website, if you're interested in learning more about LinkedIn, which we didn't talk a lot about, but I do think if you're in a place of wanting to grow your business and have been thinking about how can I expand what I do, perhaps through freelance writing or maybe coaching or something else where it makes sense, I have a course on LinkedIn that's designed really for people who are just kind of starting to figure out that platform. And it's a really affordable $49 program, so you can kind of learn everything you need to know to optimize your profile, make connections, use groups, use search, all of that stuff to really make that platform work better for you. And you can find out about that on my website, which is just BeckyMollenkamp.com/LinkedIn. So I would say my Facebook group, I'm on Instagram. That's the other one I kind of focus on, but I'm actually thinking about stepping back from it a bit too. So basically it's my website and my Facebook group.
Well, we will be sure to link to all of those in the show notes so they'll be able to easily find the group and be able to get over there. Becky, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and share knowledge with my audience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This was great. I really enjoyed it.